Well, guys, thanks for joining us. We're here to talk about something that's really important to everyone in society, and I think maybe shine a light on sometimes the mental health struggles that exist in elite team sport. So, Lote, great to have you on board, and James Beggs, great to have you with us as well. We know that mental health struggles don't discriminate, even those that have the spotlight on them. Whether it's us individual teammates or players we played against, we definitely had moments and struggles throughout our sporting careers, and we've seen a lot of it more recently starting to come out, which I think is a positive. Yep. But maybe starting with you, Beggs, from the outside, you were probably living the dream. I saw you get drafted to St Kilda, then go back to the Crows. But what was really going on inside your own head from time to time, even though you were living out a boyhood dream?
Such a massive question, isn't it? And I could go many different directions, but I think the easiest way I could sum it up to a certain degree is that I just was living a mask. And so the way and the reason that I describe it as living a mask was because I think I was quite disconnected from who I truly am as a person and who I thought I had to be as an 18-year-old to fit into a very male-dominated culture. And so if I reflect back on the amount of energy over the 5, 6, 7 years that I played, I was consuming an inordinate amount of energy not being myself. And in the end, it just cost me what I would say is any form of happiness and contentment in my life, to the point where I was very happy to give the game away because of what it was doing to my mental health.
You also had lots of injury struggle. That was also a catalyst, right? So you were dealing with that almost separation from your personality, but also significant injury and setback on the field.
Yeah, you've got a mental battle. You feel in pain mentally and emotionally, and you've got a physical pain, and that's hard to reconcile with, especially when you're a young kid, you've left the home, and you're trying to navigate a new environment, new structures. I'm not saying it was all terrible, don't get me wrong, like there was some huge highs, but certainly when I began my football career, the level of support and the level of assistance and even the language used with mental health was certainly of don't be weak, if you're not broken, don't go and see a psych, you just got to crack on. And so I know it's evolved a huge amount over the last few years for really positive reasons.
Lote, you played in an era where the Wallabies were, the beacon of Australian sport. You also played in an era where the weight of expectation was at an all-time high to perform. How did you deal with that weight of expectation, along with the fact that, at long times in a season, in a year, that you weren't home and you're away from your culture as well?
Yeah, the travelling was I guess really tough, and that weight of expectation probably wasn't as yes, it was there, but it was more so from ourselves and from within the group, and we're sort of trying to keep everyone in check. I don't know if I struggled too much. Probably later in my career, if I look back on it, just around selections, because I'd come into the team being one of the first picked or second picked, and I was sort of right up there. And then right at the end of my career, I got a few injuries back to back. Sort of started struggling a fair bit around, going home early, not training with everyone. I really struggle with that. I'm a guy who likes to be in and around a team. But part of most of the reason after I finished up why I played the game was, that sense of camaraderie around that change room, and having that taken away from you, training with 2 or 3 other blokes, and not being, on the inside jokes and everything else. So I probably really struggle with that more so. And I don't know how I dealt with it. We just tried to get back on the field, really. And then that selection, I started getting old, and there were young guys coming through, taking your positions. They were fitter, faster models. And from not having being the first pick to then being the third or fourth in line after getting all those injuries, it was really tough to handle. And then you're playing reserves on the weekend in front of 100 people. It was a bit of a kick in the guts at different times, just rocking up thinking, just how I'm going to go out. I probably struggled with that a little bit, but thankful for me, I had a pretty good support network in and around what I was doing and propping me up. Had I not had that, I reckon I could have really, really spiraled. And probably having a bit of faith as well. I'm not saying I live by it, but I grew up with a bit of faith around, going to church, and that sort of helped a little bit as well.
Hey, Pav, just jumping in because this is not a one-way street. We joke a little bit about, the Pavlich life graph, which is unfair because the outside perception is that it's been a pretty smooth run from talented junior through to, all the things that you've done. If there was a moment in your career, whether it was a month or a week or a day, where you felt like that's a great example of when you were at your bleakest, can you remember a time and what was going through your brain?
I've got a couple. So how long you got? So I think this is the point that the external veneer that I put up, or the external veneer that exists, is not exactly how it goes on in between your two ears. And so a couple of the darkest moments I had, one being after the grand final loss in 2013, which I'll get to. But I remember playing at the old, what was Marvel Stadium, but Etihad Stadium. I was captain at the time, and we were playing Carlton, a team we should have beaten. And I was sort of at the peak of my career. This is about 2007, 2008. Young captain. Our team was in transition. We lost a lot of our veterans across the previous couple of seasons after being towards a couple of final series in a row, a prelim final. And I was the leader. I was the one that had to play well every week. I was the person who had to get out the front every week and demand high standards, show some empathy, front the media. I was that person, day after day, week after week. And I remember late in the game, last quarter against Carlton, took a nice mark, right in front of goal, hit the post, missed a shot. And we went on to lose the game. And I remember walking off the field. I couldn't get off the field quick enough. Like, I just wanted to go and hide. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to see anyone. I had family from interstate come across. They were in town for the match. I didn't want to see them after the game. I actually walked, once the team, we got together, we walked off the field. And I just kept walking. Instead of into the change rooms, I just kept walking underneath the boughs of Etihad Stadium because I just didn't want to see anyone. I just felt like, the whole weight was on my shoulders. Yeah. And that I'd let a lot of people down, both my teammates, but family, friends, the whole club, sponsors, everyone. It felt like that in that moment. I completely capitulated mentally. That was how I was, viewing my performance. And so I think it's just natural and normal that no matter what you do, you have these moments in time where you're at your lowest point. And it doesn't matter if you're getting paid really well and you're the leader of the bunch and you looks from the outside world that you're living your dream. Internally at that point, I was nowhere. I was done. So it's a good thing that you can start talking about these things and sharing that no matter what looks like from the outside, you can be really battling with a lot of things internally. Probably a question then, or the next part, and I remember this as well. When you travelled, I remember sort of going to a hotel and it smelled like failure. You'd walk into a hotel room because you'd lost there before, or those long nights away where you can't go and have fun because you're focusing on the game. You can't go and socialise. I felt very lonely in hotel rooms. I travelled for 17 years. Lote, do you remember having that sense of loneliness as well?
Yes and no, mate. I try to get out and see what was going on in and around. Luckily for me, I didn't have the pressure of being a captain. When you started talking about that, I thought to myself, wow, you're at the peak of your powers. I looked some of the captains that I was looked up to. in a different light now with some of their pressures. Our captains always had their own room. You probably don't want your own room at different times as well. Maybe you did, but that being away, and sometimes we played up in the Northern Hemisphere. I remember my last tour with the Wallabies. I think I just got dragged on there. I was 2008, sorry, and there was young guys coming through. I didn't get picked on some of the test matches before we left. I was in the group that was sort of getting back into a bit of fitness. I didn't know when I was going to play. So that tour, I actually really struggled. And there was times I didn't really know, or I didn't really have a connection with some of the younger guys that were coming through as well. They were young. They were sort of doing their thing. They were a bit loud and everything else. And I was just old guys still trying to, capture some form or just get back on the field. That's one of the years I definitely struggled with the travel, because we're traveling at the end of the year. It's dark up there. That didn't help the weather. And I guess they're just sort of rolling the dice, because the communication from the coaches at the time as well was they didn't know when you were going to play either. We were going to win, whether the team gets changed and this, that, and the other. So I was just on a train, and I just tried to be the best I could be for everyone else. But internally, as you said before, mate, I was sort of struggling with the inconsistency of where the comms were coming from. You might be in, you might not be. And then, I think I only played off the bench in a game, and I played the last game, which was a bit of a game that, it was a consolation match, I reckon. I played against the Barbarians. So I started that game. And then I probably, the next, at the end of that tour, I was like, I don't know what I'm still signed here for another 2 or 3 years. And then, there was a lot of, you start questioning your own ability, and you start questioning, well, am I that good? Have I lost what I once had? You start questioning, which I definitely did at that time in my career. And not too long after that, mate, I went back over the fence to play rugby league. I went up to the Northern Hemisphere for a little bit, and then came back and freshened up, which was I guess really good for me. It was a blessing in disguise.
I think that questioning yourself is something that happens all the time. And Begs, it came to a flashpoint for you when you decided to retire and travel overseas. You'd had enough, but I remember admiring you, growing up together and seeing you get drafted before I did a couple of years. And when I sort of heard that you retired, it was, again, from the outside, it was like, what's this guy doing? Like, he's got a long career ahead of himself. But you were obviously questioning not only where you belonged, that sense of belonging, which is important to everyone, but also your own abilities, I'm sure.
Yeah, that self-talk. I mean, I never got on top of it, I don't think, and while I was playing my career. I think that was certainly a factor as to why, I really didn't enjoy it to the max, a sense of feeling like a complete fraud, like I was lucky to play football. To some degree, I've had the antithesis in terms of a career for you two, so maybe I'm a good little foil, because a lot of people get my type of career. But just coming to the travel bit, I completely concur, except mine has come more recently when I've been traveling to the US for work. And I find that you have this absence of noise, and so you're left completely with your own demons sometimes. And I just remember calling my partner Jess and just crying. Like, I was beside myself, like, what am I doing here? Like, what are we trying to achieve? This place is huge. Feet felt completely out of my depth, and I'm not sure what I would have done if I hadn't been able to make that call. But travel, hotel rooms, isolation, away from routine it's definitely been a time in my life where it's always a bit of a danger point.
Well, mate, it jogged my memory a little bit. I was thinking of that too. I was just finishing training, not doing too much. These guys were doing other things which we didn't want to do. I was going up the road, sitting in the bar having a drink. I was sort of, calming myself with alcohol.
Yeah.
Doing that, and I was like, I'm on tour. I'm at the, top of the game. I'm traveling overseas, and here I am by myself in a little down the alleyway bar, just like, and no one knew. I was just there sort of a couple of hours. I didn't actually really want to go back to the hotel. So I was just like, man, I'll give it a couple of hours. I didn't get blind drunk, but I was like, I'm not playing this weekend. I haven't been picked.
There's a way of coping.
Yeah,
I reckon I self-medicated at times with alcohol just to deal with failure and to deal with I know for self-medicating is not the best way to describe it, but just to get away from your thoughts or to do something differently. Alcohol was a bit of an escapism from time to time, which clearly is not healthy. And I know lots of teammates who battled with severe mental health challenges, and they would use alcohol a lot to deal with that. And clearly there's been lots of examples, unfortunately, where people have used alcohol, drugs and other things, and it's just spiraled out of control for them. I'm sure you guys both saw teammates or had personal experiences with that as well.
Oh yeah, I've watched a couple where straight after, it was a St Kilda player, straight after making his time trial cutoff, he was so relieved he went straight to Dan Murphy's and bought a carton and sat at home and drank like 80% of it. Just because he was so relieved that he'd got this milestone done. But I think it's evolved a lot, although I'm a bit interested in some of your instances or moments in time where you were that person maybe to be a sounding board for somewhere else. I mean, I remember a moment, but I'm interested where if there was just a moment where someone in the end took you up on the offer when you said, you know what, how you doing? How you actually going? Did they take you an offer or?
Yep. So a teammate of mine who was really battling with both injury and then, a relationship breakdown. I was close enough to him to say, let's go for a coffee. Do you want to have a chat? And he effectively told us then that he was really struggling. He needed help. And, fortunately, he was open enough to have that conversation. Another really good friend of mine, the smartest person I know and one of the most driven people I know in business, still remember we'd planned to go and spend time together in Melbourne at the races. We'd been overseas, and I got back from overseas and called him and said, hey mate, looking forward to seeing you on the weekend. Hey, are you all ready for this? And when just immediately someone's off, or the way they respond, or the way that and he was just a long way off himself, and he was just a shell of a person for a long time. And fortunately, he was open enough to go, no, I'm really struggling here. I need some help. And so, medicated him, got to the right people, got to the right experts, spoke to psychs, etc. And I think that's the bit, it's a twofold game that you have to be, one, open enough and aware enough to ask those questions of people around you. And the second part is the person has to be willing to be vulnerable and say, no, I'm not okay. And I think that I've been fortunate in a couple of situations where that has happened. Have you guys had similar?
Yeah, well, I probably sit in a space where I struggle with vulnerability, and I struggle with, having that conversation. I've just masked, when I was sort of going through things. I masked, say, yeah, mate, I'm okay, mate, I'm fine. But there's obviously stuff going on, and then you go different times to go write yourself off, because then you probably start talking when you're at different times, when you're probably under the influence of an addiction or something else. Whether that talk's any good is probably not the best, but yes, I have struggled, and I'll probably still struggle to be vulnerable around some of my stuff. But I know, when I was struggling back in the day, I actually used to go back and pray, if I'm being honest. Back in my room and maybe do a little bit of that. Talk to God. A lot of my teammates probably don't, I guess, think I was doing that or whatever, but that was a sounding board for me. I think just to sort of get it out and sort of go from there. And I've got a few really tight mates who I want to talk to as well. But yeah, you definitely need that sounding board because or an outlet somewhere. Because I know, I'm struggling at times.
Have
you got an example? Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, you've got an example, have you? Or?
Well, yeah. I mean, I personally, and for all intents and purposes, Pav did it for me when I was having a bit of a meltdown. Well, on the surface, it probably wasn't a meltdown, right? We're in the early stages of building Pickstar, and I'd probably taken on a lot of the sort of financial burden of building the business and maybe spending a bit too much on my credit cards to keep everything going, and created a moment where I spoke to Pav and I, on the surface, was like, look, not going great. And it was one of those moments where, I think someone, will play a role in your life that kind of changes your life. And in that moment, it wasn't so much about, Pav, your ability to listen and just absorb. It was the fact that you were so action orientated. And I know that's not always the case, that is what is needed. But for me, it absolutely was like, right, I'm in the plane on 2 days. I'm in the plane. I'll be there in 2 days, and we're gonna sort this out. Yeah. And so for me, it was like this massive weight off my shoulders that I wasn't on my own with it. But if I also just extend, Pav, on like when you do ask, one of the big things I've noticed is you can. This whole idea of "Are you okay?" is fine if you say "Are you okay?" Then you take into consideration their body language and their tone. It's not about what they say back to you. It's then you follow up 2 questions like, mate, from what I've seen, there's something going on. Like, I'm here for you. Like, and then the third time is, mate, you can be all in, right? Like, so to make someone feel comfortable, I just think it's about the one question. I reckon it's about in that moment, are you going to be a vulnerable person to give them the comfort that you're going to be a safe pair of hands, or are you just going to flippantly go, are you okay? And they'll go, yeah, I'm fine. And then you move on like, well, I've done my bit. I don't think you have.
Couldn't agree more. I think that's right. It's the first question is the entry into the deeper level of conversation that is actually required when you're asking someone, are you okay? And then you're right, you make those observations about their body language, what's happened in their life for the last couple of weeks, anything else that might be relevant to actually dig deeper, because the first question is important, but it's really the second or third or fourth one that hits home.
Follow up. Yeah, I know a lot of mates that I do the same. I go quiet. I don't really get back to people and all that thing. There's some of the cues that I take off mates and some mates do for me. And then, like you blokes, if someone says, they're struggling for a bit, you want to help, don't you? I want to help. I'm going to go, yep, okay, what can we do? Like, have you were action-oriented. I think a lot of blokes are action-oriented with their mates. And, having the vulnerability to say that, okay, that I am actually struggling. Let's break this down. And I don't think a lot of I don't think a lot of people judge when you say you're not okay. I think there'll be no one. I don't think. Yeah. So
it's funny, isn't it? Like we probably had all the services at our fingertips, really, in the game with psych, health and wellbeing, lots of player development people that were there to assist us, and yet, really, were we actually using those services effectively? No, it's probably not until hindsight. Where we've all gone, oh, hang on, whether it's us personally, we need to deal with some stuff that happened in our career personally, or from the team, which I certainly use regularly, psych services, to actually filter and process some of the things that I felt like I failed in my career. And I know those services are there and being more utilised more regularly, but it's that combination of mate ship and asking people the right questions and digging deeper, as well as the services professionally that are obviously required for some people to go to. Begs, I know you're big in this space as well.
Yeah, I in classical man style, probably about 2017, went to a therapist, a psychologist, and just said, look, I'm not broken. I'm in really good shape. I just want to dominate in my craft. I want to be elite in my performance. And then within about 30 minutes, I think I was crying with dad issues, right? So, but therein began a relationship with my therapist that I've maintained every 2 weeks, since 2017. And it's just part of my life. It's part of my calendar. And what I've noticed is whether I'm in a good space, difficult space, exciting space, having that avenue to be real and, you know, have no judgment applied to anything that I say has been a really, really critical thread, I guess, in my life, which in turn improves your performance. But if I'm going to be real about it, I went there because I thought I just want to improve my ability to do work. And in the end, it's been a really, really healthy chapter.
Couldn't agree more. I still got visions of me missing a goal in the second quarter of the grand final in 2013 that I think I've got PTSD from. So I've had to process that. I laugh about it, but it's true. I still remember seeing faces behind the goal, feeling like the breeze pushed the ball out of my hand. So I think there's some stuff there that clearly, and when you're captain, I think this is the point we were talking about before. You have to, you know, we had years of challenging thereafter. You know, we played prelims and finals thereafter, and so you kind of you put it in a little box and you put it away, and you're just like, oh, I'll deal with that later. And here I am 10 years later kind of dealing with it, right? So it's not a healthy thing, but I think it's also contextual, particularly when you're the leader of the group, you have to sometimes just put it in a box and deal with it later.
Yeah, mate. I like what you talked about it, Begsy, around, you know, going to see someone. I'm probably coming from a different angle here. That's totally not in your environment. Totally out of whack. Someone that's, you know, does something else. They don't know even who you are. That really resonated with me. Because I was like, I can actually have a chat with this bloke, because he doesn't really know me. He doesn't know any of my family. He wouldn't know me from Boo. And I can actually be a little bit more honest. I don't know how or why that works for me. But, you know, I can tell him anything. I can kill it, you know, and be happy with telling him it after it. Big weight off my shoulders. I've actually got something out, spoken to someone, and I can sort of move on. And I found that really helpful, just in my, you know, my life around that stuff.
So I guess, guys, maybe as we start to close this out, we know that mental health challenges, they don't really care about job titles, money or profile. We all have fear, we all have doubt, we all get lonely from time to time, and we all fail. And sometimes, just asking, are you okay, is a great starting point for these conversations. Is there any last comments or thoughts that you would like to share?
Well, this whole conversation has been pretty cathartic for me, boys. I'm being honest. I didn't envision coming on here and, you know, talking about anything else. But yes, I thought it was going to be a conversation, but I thought it was going to be a bit of footy and everything else mixed in. But it's made me think about, you know, it's been a bit more vulnerable. Going to have a chat to someone, you know, and checking in on my mates. Because I do have a few at the moment that probably sort of need some help, and you know, there'll be a time when I'll be doing that in the near future.
I think mine is Pav. Often those are the first to reach out, are the most consistent, are the most loyal and steady, are often the ones who are, you know, battling the most. And so if someone does ask you, I guess just check and also think about them, and also think deeply about yourself. And you don't need to be asked by someone else. If you are true to yourself and you're asking that in a really honest way, it can be life-changing to accept that you're not okay. And so that's probably my key thought. And by the way, I battle with mine every day. It doesn't disappear. It's just a continuum of management.
Yeah, and sometimes you wake up feeling great. Sometimes you wake up feeling shit, like it's real. So, and then you're just going to get on with it. But getting on with it means also looking after yourself and being kind to yourself and making sure you look after your mates as well. That's absolutely true.
Love it, boys.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks very much. Been a pleasure catching you both.
You too, boys.
See ya.